Hello, and welcome to the Delaware Odyssey of the Mind Judges Training for 2019-2020. This is Rebecca Lowe. I am with the Delaware Odyssey of the Mind Board of Directors. I am also the training coordinator, which means that I train judges, coaches, and coordinators. We want to thank you for agreeing to be a judge. It takes a lot of judges to help run our tournaments, so we really appreciate your willingness to help us provide this really great and exciting program for all of the students in Delaware who participate. A little information about today's training. You can watch this training. I am also recording it in such a way that if you are visually impaired, or if you like to multitask like I do, you can actually just listen to this and you should be able to get all the information that you need. This training is required. It doesn't matter if you're a first-time judge or if you've been judging for many years. You do have to complete this portion of the training and then complete an online test afterwards. So just sit back, relax, and we'll get through this. So, Odyssey of the Mind, just kind of a brief history lesson. The founder is Dr. Sam Miklas, who was a college professor at what is now Rowan University. And he wanted to put together a unique challenge for his engineering students to test their risk-taking as well as kind of thinking outside of the box. His competition that he set up was so successful that he continued to offer it at the college level, and then eventually offered it to the high school level, and then it grew from there to eventually become a creative problem-solving competition for children of all ages. Odyssey of the Mind celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. Delaware Odyssey of the Mind is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year in 2020. And the competition is run under the supervision of Creative Competitions, Inc., CCI. And our programs, as I said, started 40 years ago in 1980 in Delaware. So, Odyssey of the Mind today, it's an international creative problem-solving competition. You have thousands of students from kindergarten through college participate in this program. Most states in the United States have an Odyssey of the Mind program. There are about 35 states participate in Odyssey of the Mind. And it is actually a worldwide competition. You have kids from all over the world, from countries including Canada, Mexico, Japan, Poland, Germany, Hong Kong, South Korea, just to name a few. It is an international competition. We are part of Delaware Odyssey of the Mind, also known as DEOOTM. We are the Delaware affiliate of the International Odyssey of the Mind program. So we are a state affiliate which falls under the supervision of Creative Competitions, Inc., or CCI. They are the ones that write the problems, they issue the clarifications around problems, and they also run the World Finals tournament. Delaware Odyssey of the Mind was known as DelCaps in the past. You may hear it referred to that from before. We rebranded in the last couple of years to be known as Delaware Odyssey of the Mind. Just so you know, also, Odyssey of the Mind is often referred to as OM, and so I may refer to it as that during this presentation. Delaware Odyssey of the Mind is an all-volunteer 501c3 or nonprofit organization. We have a board of directors that governs it. There are 15 members on that board of directors, 15 voting members as well as different committee members. We provide training for coordinators, coaches, and judges throughout Delaware. We also coordinate 2 qualifying tournaments as well as a state finals competition. And we foster partnerships with schools and organizations throughout the state to encourage participation in Odyssey of the Mind. Delaware Odyssey of the Mind program actually has one of the highest per capita number of teams. So given how tiny Delaware is, we have a lot of teams that participate in Odyssey of the Mind. So what exactly is Odyssey of the Mind? It's a program where teams of students work together to solve original, fun problems by using their creativity. And all of that creativity is bottled up into an 8-minute presentation. So you should expect the unexpected. And for those who are just listening to this, on the screen is just a whole bunch of pictures from past competitions that kind of just shows you the array of what you will see. So, what does an actual Odyssey of the Mind competition look like? Teams compete in divisions that are based on the grade level of the oldest team member. So you have primary, which is a non-competitive division, and it's for students in grades kindergarten through 2nd. You have Division 1, which is essentially grades 3 to 5 or elementary school. You could have students from kindergarten to 2nd grade on a Division 1 team. They can choose to compete as opposed to being on the non-competitive primary team. But in general, you see kids in Division 1 who are grades 3 to 5. Division 2 basically is middle school. That's grades 6 to 8. Division 3 is high school, or grades 9 to 12. And there is a Division 4 that is college, as well as continuing education classes. For example, in Delaware, we have the OSHA program through the University of Delaware, the Lifelong Learning Program for senior learners. They can compete in Odyssey of the Mind. However, they only compete at the world level. You will never see a Division 4 team competing at the state level. And again, the level that the team competes at depends on the oldest member of the team. So if you have a kid in 6th grade and all the other kids are in 4th grade, then they would compete as Division 2 and not Division 1. So what does an Odyssey of the Mind team look like? Well, teams who are in Divisions 1 through 4 may have up to 7 members on a team. Teams may compete with fewer than 7, but it is recommended that teams have at least 5 members. However, you may see a team come through with only 4 kids on it, or I've even seen teams with just 1 kid on it at the world level. But in general, we suggest that teams have at least 5 members. Primary teams, the non-competitive teams composed of the kindergarten through 2nd graders, may have as many members as they want on a team. So they are not restricted to the 7-member rule. Now, Odyssey of the Mind, the long-term problems. So Divisions 1 through 4 teams choose from one of 5 competitive long-term problems. And each of these has a different subject matter. And this doesn't change from one year to the next. So every year it's kind of the same. Problem 1 is a vehicle problem. Problem 2 is a technical problem. Problem 3 is a classics problem, meaning it has some type of classics component to it, history, art, architecture. Problem 4 is a structure problem where they are building with balsa wood. Problem 5 is a performance problem. It's strictly performance. There is only one problem for primary teams to solve, so they do not choose a problem. The problem is presented that this is what it is, and it generally contains elements that you would find in problems 1 through 5. So you expose the kids to kind of like what it would be like to solve all these different problems. Now, each problem includes one or more objectives, a set of limitations and requirements, and specific scoring categories. The problems are different every year, and the requirements and limitations change as well. And again, the Creative Competitions Inc. or CCI are the ones who write the problems and issue them. There are 3 scoring components to the problem. There is what is known as the long-term score. That's worth 200 points. These problems are provided annually by CCI, and the teams work for months on their solutions. You then have a style score, which is 50 points, It's scored as part of the long-term problem performance and is an added element that enhances the performance. So it is part of the long-term problem and how it is solved, but it is a separate scoring category. Your third scoring category is spontaneous, which is 100 points, and teams solve a problem on the spot. They don't know what the problem is going to be. It is not related to the long-term problem that they solved. There is one of three, they may solve one of three different types of spontaneous problems. One type is called a verbal problem, which is where they are responding to a prompt. There is a type of problem called hands-on, which is where they build something or they manipulate materials that are given to them to have it do something or make something. And then you have a type of problem called verbal hands-on, where they make or manipulate something and then give a verbal response of some kind. It's usually a two-part problem. You make something in the first part, and in the second part you have to do responses to it. The problem is assigned when the team walks in the room. So in other words, the team goes into the room, they find out what type of problem. It's going to be verbal hands-on or verbal hands-on, and then they are given the problem to respond then. So they can practice for different types of spontaneous problems, but they are not actually going to know what they're going to get until that moment they walk in. Odyssey of the Mind is a competition, but it is so much more. Students learn teamwork and collaboration. They really learn how to get along. They gain independence and confidence, and they also learn to compromise because they do have to work together to come up with a solution to the problem they're given. Students learn to solve problems through critical and creative thinking as well as through risk-taking. And Odyssey is really about the creative journey. So exactly what is creativity and Odyssey of the Mind? It's teams taking new approaches to solving problems. It's risk-taking through innovation. And one thing to know is that with risk-taking, the task may not be successfully completed, but they may still get points for it based on the creativity of what they chose to do. So playing it safe doesn't always get you the best score. Teams will create original characters and come up with unique situations for them to be in. You see trash or other recyclables are artfully and creatively repurposed. One of the reasons for that is each problem has a budget of usually $125 to $145 depending on the problem, and teams must stick to that budget. So you see a lot of creative use of materials to make sure that they don't go over budget. They are also encouraged to take common items and use them in unexpected ways. So we're really trying to teach them to look at things differently. Multiple senses are engaged, which is part of the learning objective. And you will also see age-appropriate solutions. So what you see a Division III team do, you're probably not going to see a Division I team do. So there's going to definitely be differences in skills and ability and how they solve the problem, but it is usually age-appropriate. So judging and Odyssey of the Mind. So now that you know the history and you understand some of the structure of this program, let's get to the details of what it means to judge at a tournament and what you can expect. So the judging responsibilities. Judges must be present for the entire tournament day to see every team in the problem and division to which they are assigned, and they may not leave until they are released by the head judge or problem captain. So it can be a long day. You should be prepared to be there all day. We will feed you, we will give you breaks, we will make sure that you are kept happy, but you do need to make sure that your schedule is clear. Scoring judges evaluate solutions based on the problem's criteria. That's their responsibility. Scoring judges record also what they observe. All judges are responsible to never let teams compete in unsafe conditions. And a big thing that judges do is that they encourage the teams and help them to have fun and to relax. We really want tournaments to be fun. We want Odyssey of the Mind to be a fun experience. We want everyone involved to have a good time. So we hope that you will help us do that. So, conflict of interest. Judges get access to information, problem information, that could help a team maximize its score. And what that means is that when you go through your problem-specific training, you will be told of various clarifications that have been issued by CCI regarding a problem. There'll be talk about how problems can be solved. So you're going to get information that could help a team. So for that reason, if you have a close relationship with a participating student or a coach, then you should not be assigned to the problem that that coach or student is doing. So in particular, we're thinking of family members. If a child in the family is, for example, is doing problem 3 and you are assigned problem 3, then you don't want to judge problem 3, because even though you may say, I won't say anything, I would never let on any information, it just doesn't look good. So we ask that if you have a close relationship to someone and you know they're doing the problem, even if you don't think you would be judging that particular division they're in, you want to let the tournament official know so that you can be reassigned to a different problem. Now, teachers and school personnel may judge teams from their own school. That's fine, as long as you don't have that close of a relationship to them, even though you know, oh yeah, I know, that kid from that class. If you don't have a close relationship, that's not going to be a conflict of interest for you to judge that team. So if you have any doubts, if you think there's any sense of impropriety that could be seen from you judging a particular team, contact your problem captain, talk through it, see what they think. If it doesn't feel right, we'll reassign you. Now, there are some safety rules to consider. Teams may not cause damage to the facility or cause injury to any person. There is a list of items that teams are not permitted to use, and some of those things are, but it's not limited, this list, but you are not allowed live animals, helium balloons that are not weighted down, dry ice, items that leave a residue, no fire in any form, and also no nudity, profanity, vulgarity, violent acts, or racial and ethnic slurs. All of that is prohibited. All team members must have their feet covered. In other words, the bottom of the feet must be covered by a material that is generally non-penetrable. Any team member who loses a foot covering during a performance must stop performing until it is replaced. So if they lose a shoe, they need to put it back on. Only unmodified, commercially available sealed batteries may be used unless otherwise specified by a problem. Actual weapons are prohibited and will be confiscated. Replicas that look real also are prohibited. A team may have a fake weapon that, something like a ray gun or something that's obviously a fake sword. That's fine, but something that looks realistic is not allowed. There is a program guide, and we would recommend that you read it, and the complete list of safety rules may be found on pages 39 to 42. You want to make sure you read the problem carefully. So whatever problem you are assigned to, you need to read it carefully. One of the things about Odyssey Mind, and I always tell coaches and coordinators this, it's like learning a new language. Odyssey has its own vocabulary, it has its own glossary, things that you think you know what they mean in plain English don't necessarily mean the thing in Odyssey of the Mind. So you want to make sure that you read your problem carefully. So for example, the phrase overall creativity of performance is not the same as overall creativity of the theme of the performance, which is not the same as the overall quality of the performance, and none of those are the same as the artistic quality. Those all mean slightly different things, and if you're judging, you need to know what the distinctions are between each of those types of things. When you go through your problem-specific training, your problem captain will provide more information on the wording in the problem that you're assigned to, and make sure everyone on the judging team understands the wording, that everyone has the same sense of what it is that you're supposed to be judging and how those words convey that. There is a problem glossary that may be found either, the problem glossary is at the end of the problem that you are assigned to. They'll have a little list of explaining what some of the words mean in the problem. And then also the program guide has a glossary of terms that you often see in Odyssey of the Mind. So you want to make sure that you take a quick look at those things. So what is the philosophy behind Odyssey of the Mind? All judges are responsible for making sure teams are treated fairly and have a good tournament experience. It's very important to us as a board that everybody have a good time and that the kids have fun and that they leave the tournament, regardless of where they place, feeling like they want to come back next year. So teams should be complimented regardless of the success of the solution. So even if something failed, you always want to find something to compliment the kids. And sometimes a failure can be pretty spectacular in just the way that it was done. You will encounter situations where you have to assess penalties. Assess penalties only when necessary to maintain a level playing field in the competition. We're really not here to look for ways to penalize kids, but we do have to make sure that it's fair to everybody. So if you are ever unsure about what a team has done and whether or not you should assess a penalty, you want to give the team the benefit of the doubt. So now some of the possible penalties and the points that can be assigned to that penalty are found in the problem, and they include things such as a spirit of the problem violation, unsportsmanlike conduct, if they have an incorrect or missing membership sign, if there was outside assistance, if they go over their time limit, and that depends on the problem. Some problems have a hard stop at 8 minutes. Other problems, the kids are allowed to continue past 8 minutes, but they're penalized for, a certain amount of time. For each time they go over, they get so many points taken off, or if they go over their cost limit. Again, you want to give the team a benefit of the doubt. An example of that would be if teams are required to have their membership sign showing at all times during the performance. If the sign is up throughout the performance but happens to fall over at the very end during the last few seconds, they should not be penalized for that. They give them the benefit of the doubt that it was up for most of the time. Now, if it fell over early in the performance and no one ever bothered to pick it up, that's a different matter, and that would be something for the judging team to discuss. So again, just to reiterate about the scoring components, you have your long-term problem, which has 200 points. You have the style portion of the long-term problem, which is 50 points. And then you have your spontaneous portion of the competition, which is 100 points. So they have a total of 350 points possible. And just as an aside, the teams get what's called a raw score, and then the team with the highest number of points within their problem and division actually get the adjusted score of the full 200 points, and they kind of set what the bar is for everybody behind them. So there's a raw score, and then there is a calculated score depending on where everyone falls. So scoring the long-term problem. So each problem has a scoring form that defines the criteria to be judged and the associated point values with that criteria. Each team is to be individually scored based on how well they satisfy the criteria. The team's creative process and the details are observed up close during the question and answer session, which is after the performance, and that should be considered when scoring. So after you see a team perform, you and the entire scoring team is going to get the opportunity to go up and talk to the kids, look over their set, their props, find out how things worked. You'll really be able to get to spend a little bit of time with them going over things. Now, teams should not be compared to one another. You should view each team individually, but your scoring should be consistent throughout the tournament. You cannot change or adjust your scoring during the day. So if you start out giving a score that maybe 2 or 3 teams in, you realize, ooh, I've been scoring kind of high. I probably shouldn't have been giving that highest score to that particular criteria. You cannot change that. You need to continue to score at that same level throughout the tournament. We are not able to go back and change scores, and you should not adjust your scores going forward, because then that's not fair to the ones who were coming after, who were either before or after, depending on if you were scoring high or low. And the way you score may be not quite the same as other judges on your team. Things that you may score high on, someone may give it a slightly lower score, and that's fine as long as you're both consistent in how you score. Now there is objective scoring and there is subjective scoring. So objective scoring, most problems include objective scoring in the form. So if the objective is completed, the team earns the points. Partial credit cannot be scored. It's an all or nothing. So for example, if a problem says you must have a light and it must turn on, if the team has a light and it does, so you have a light and it has to turn on 3 times, and it's 5 points for each time. If the light never turns on, then it's 0 points. The light turns on once, it's 5 points. Light turns on twice, it's 10 points. Light turns on 3 times, it's 15 points. So it's light turned on, light didn't turn on. There's no questioning it. Now the problem will specify whether the team may have multiple attempts to complete the task. For example, if you're doing a vehicle problem, they may say that the team is allowed several tries at tipping something over or putting something in a box. And you would score it based on when they finally succeed. Now the objective must be observed or heard by at least one member of the judging team during the performance for the team to be awarded the points. And all judges will have the same score for this item. So if no one saw it happen, the team doesn't get the score. If one person saw it, then the team gets the points. So in other words, back to the light, say only one person saw that light come on, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if no one else on the judging team saw that light come on. As long as one person can say, yes, I saw the light go on during the performance, then you give them the points that they were supposed to get for meeting that criteria. Now teams, it's all based on observation. You cannot use video or audio recordings afterwards to contest an objective score. So if a team tries, if they were given 0 points because the light didn't come on, and they try and come up with a video recording, say, no, here we got it recorded, that light came on, that's not considered. That is not allowed in Odyssey of the Mind. Now you also have what's called subjective scoring, which is basically opinion. So all problems include items that require subjective scoring. Some things to consider if you are scoring based on a subjective scoring is you want to read the problem wording carefully. Again, getting back to Odyssey of the Mind has its own language. Words kind of mean slightly different things in Odyssey of the Mind world. You want to follow the guidelines provided by the problem captains, which you will receive during your problem-specific training. So they will walk you through what the different phrases are, what the different subjective score terms mean. You want to give credit for effort as well as result. So if a team, even if they fail at completing the task, but they have done just an outstanding job trying to get it to happen, give them credit for that. Again, this is all about making this a fun, rewarding experience for the kids and really trying to not penalize them. Remember, all judges for the problem should have the same rule interpretations. So when you are going through your problem-specific training, the problem captain will make sure everyone is on the same page and everyone understands exactly how they should be scoring that particular problem. So I mentioned earlier that there is a scoring component called style. And what is style? Style is an elaboration of the long-term problem. The style score gives teams an opportunity to showcase their talents and interests, especially if the problem doesn't give them the opportunity to otherwise. So you may have a problem that has no mention of using song, but if you've got a team member that can sing, the team may decide to put a song in there, or they may have a dance, or they could have some type of engineering. Usually it's a chance to showcase those members who are not getting to show their talents otherwise. The elements selected are usually the most creative embellishments of the presentation, so teams will take a look at what they have put together, or they will decide ahead of time and really focus on making something spectacular. It could be a backdrop, it could be a prop, it could be, the way a character, the way it looks, the way it sounds. You may see musical, artistic, dance, or writing talent on display, as well as engineering skills. And the team may strive to use unusual materials in non-traditional ways. So that's another style, as you may see a team decide to make an entire set out of one type of particular item. So scoring style. The team uses the style form to define the items to be scored for style. Now there are 5 elements to style. The first 2 elements are set by CCI. They say ahead of time these 2 elements must be assessed for style. And the 4 elements, the next 2 elements are a free choice of the team. So they get to choose, the next 2 they get to choose to what they want scored. But these 4 elements should come together to enhance or elaborate the performance. So the more the impact, the higher the score. And that is the 5th element that you will be scoring if you are a style judge. So it's a total of 5 different elements. That's up to 10 points each. That's how you get the 50 points. The first 2 elements, again, are set by CCI. Those are predetermined. The next 2, the team choose what they want you to score. And then the 5th element is actually a paragraph that they write up describing how all 4 of those elements tie in together to enhance the overall performance. As I said, the team chooses what aspects of its performance they want the judges to score for free choice of team. Now you should note they may not select an item that is being scored in the long-term problem as one of their style elements. So if there is something that is already being scored as a long-term problem criteria, they cannot choose that again. So if they have a character that wears a particular costume that's already being scored for long term, they cannot have that same costume scored for style. And that's something that your staging area judge is going to be looking for when going over their forms. So the description of the item to be scored as free choice of team must be read carefully. When we train our coaches, we really talk to them about having the kids be very specific about what they want the judges to look at in terms of the scoring. And so you should pay attention to what the kids are asking you to score. Often they're trying to draw attention to something very specific. So an example of that would be saying the clown character versus creative use of materials in the clown costume. Those are 2 very different things that you're scoring. The clown character means you're not only looking at this character, the clown, and how they look, but also what their performance is. So you're scoring the whole kit and caboodle, that's the clown. When you say the creative use of materials in the clown's costume, that means that you are scoring not only just the clown's costume, but you are looking specifically at the materials that they used to create that costume and what creative way they did, what creative thing they did with those materials. It could be they made an entire costume out of socks and they want you to focus on that. So that is all you would then score on. You wouldn't score upon anything else, the acting or anything like that. You're only focusing on what the kids are telling you to score. Now, if you are a spontaneous judge, and that is completely separate from the long-term problem judges and the style judges, this is a different judging team. There are, like we said, 3 types of problems. So with verbal problems, the team gives responses to a problem. They go, only 5 kids that's the most you can have is 5 kids, will sit down and they will be completing the problem. They take turns, they go in a circle, they usually get up to 7 responses, and they give 7 responses to a problem within a set time period. The judges listen to the responses that were given, and they score each response as either creative or common. And this is something when you meet with your problem captain, they will walk you through what are common responses and what are creative responses. For a hands-on problem, the team builds or manipulates something. So they are usually given an array of materials and they are given criteria. So it could be build a tower, out of these materials, and you receive points for how tall it is or how wide it is. And then the judges evaluate not only the success at meeting the objective, but they're also going to be looking at how the team works together. So they're evaluating teamwork as well as creativity. So it's not just did they successfully complete the problem, but what was the process? What was it like, the process to get them there? How well did the team work together? Did they act creatively? And then the third type of problem, hands-on verbal. Again, it's usually a combination of those 2 problems that I just talked about. It requires the team to build or manipulate something and then give a verbal response to it. So in phase 1, like a hands-on, you were given a series of materials, you're given an objective to build with those. You then have a part 2 where the team sits down and they interact with what they've built. It's usually, again, going in a circle, giving a response. They usually can give up to 7 responses each within a time period. And again, the judges are evaluating teamwork and creativity in addition to scoring for whether a response was creative or common. So student interactions, very important part of Odyssey of the Mind. Always be positive and supportive, and also show your appreciation for the team's efforts. These kids have been working on these problem solutions for months. Some start as early as August or September, and they are working up to the very bitter end, up until the night before or even the morning of, trying to pull this thing off. So make sure that you, even if it looks like a hot mess, make sure you find something positive to say to them. In spontaneous, your reactions are somewhat limited with the students. You're just going to be reading directions, answering questions, and recording responses. And afterwards you can wish them luck, but you don't really get to interact with the students quite as much as you do with a long-term problem. So in the long-term problems, your interactions with students will include the post-performance questions. So after they have finished their 8-minute performance and you go into the performance area, you're going to get to talk to the kids, ask them about, how something worked, why they chose to do something, who made what, how they made it. You are going to be asking outside assistance questions, and we'll talk about outside assistance in a minute, but trying to suss out who made what. And there's also going to be sticky notes given to the team. That's another way that you're going to interact with students, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So post-performance questions. So after a team completes their long-term problems, performance, the judges are going to go up and interact with the kids, and it's just going to be you and the kids. The coach does not go up and participate in that process. The parents don't go up and participate in the process. It's just the judges and the kids. So you may look at their costumes, their props, their sets up close. You can look at them, how does this work? Tell us who designed it. So you're asking questions about their creative and their design process. So why did they do something? How did they make it? Who made it? And kids, when we talk to coaches, we talk to them about their kids really practicing. The kid that made it should be the kid that describes it to you. And we tell them, get the kids to brag. So you want to find out who built things or who made things, and you want to ask that kid, because you might find out that something that a kid made took hours, or they had to learn to do a special skill. Kid had to learn coding in order to, create some kind of computer generated program. So you really want to find out what level of effort had to go into what was made. And you want to encourage them to brag about who did what and to explain their work, especially with younger ones who may feel shy, who, obviously they probably don't know you. They, may be a little hesitant to kind of, talk up about what they did. Try and make them feel comfortable and get them to really say, hey, tell us how this worked. I really want to know how this worked. You are going to be looking for outside assistance. So a team's solution is supposed to be their own. Odyssey of the Mind is hands-on for students and hands-off for adults. So adults should not be solving problems. Adults can teach skills, but they should not be building things. They should not be painting things. They should not be sewing things, any of that type of thing. That is supposed to be the students. Now, realize that you may see things you think are unlikely from children, but you will be surprised at what they can do on their own, especially if you have a team that has been doing Odyssey of the Mind for a while. They really learn a lot of tips and tricks, and it's pretty amazing what you see a team produce. However, there are teams where parents have gotten a little too involved, and you need to be able to figure that out. Was this actually a child created or young person created item, or were parents involved or adults involved in the process? Some gentle questioning will reveal quickly whose ideas you are seeing and which team members are responsible for the various parts of the solution. And if you find out there was outside assistance, find out really the extent to what it was. Again, adults can teach kids skills. They're not born with the skills that they need to know to solve Odyssey of the Mind problems. So if you have a kid who needs to learn to sew, it is fine for a parent to teach them to sew, but they can't use the materials that they were taught with in the solution. So that's the type of thing that you have to be careful about. So if they're saying, well, my parent helped me with this, find out exactly what that means. Did the parent actually make the item that you're looking at, or did the parent just teach them the skills so that then the kids could actually make the item themselves? So if you become aware someone not on the team contributed to the solution, and it could also be not only that an adult got involved in the process, you may have had a team member who dropped out and was replaced, but that team member that dropped out was the one that supplied the problem. So unless they list that, they need to be clear if there was someone who was not on the team, if they participated in the solution, then that is outside assistance. So if you become aware of someone who is not listed on the team roster was a part of solving this solution, you want to discuss it with your judging team, because you're going to have to decide what type of penalty you're going to give for outside assistance. And again, remember, outside assistant penalties are not designed to be punitive. We're not looking to punish the kids. We're not looking to make them cry. Outside assistant penalties are there to level the playing field. So we want to make sure that if parents are helping, that's not fair because other teams don't have parents helping. So the penalty should only remove points the team scored because of the outside assistance. You don't want to punish them for having adults stepping in, but you do want to remove the points from the score. Now, sticky notes. Sticky notes are really big in Odyssey of the Mind in the long-term problem solving. So exactly what are they? They are somewhat infamous, actually. Students value these sticky notes almost as much, or even in some cases more than the score. These sticky notes allow the long-term judges the opportunity to give students positive feedback about their performance, to be able to say things to them that maybe you didn't get to say to them during the after performance Q&A. Sticky notes should always be positive, but you want to avoid superlatives like best, most, finest, anything that would give the kids a false sense of where their team might rank. So if you tell a kid that's the best performance I ever saw, they're going to think, oh yeah, well, we're going to get first place now. And then when they don't come in first place, it makes things not good and awkward. So you don't want to say those types of words. You want to avoid making specific suggestions to them for saying things that they could use to improve their performance, because that would be outside assistance if the team continues on to the next level. So you don't want to say, next time you should do blah, because again, that would be considered outside assistance. So what you should write, for those who are just listening to this and not watching it, there are 4 sticky notes on the screen, and it says things like, the clown's character's performance was exciting. Another one says, I enjoyed the humor in your performance. There's another note, your sets were really bright and colorful. And another one, your music and dance really added to your performance. So those are the types of sticky notes that you would write up. Lots of exclamation points. So judging positions, there are a number of different judging positions. So let's take a look at the composition of a judging team and the various roles that you can have once you're on the team. So we will start with the problem captain. So the problem captain, also known as the PC, is the state authority on the problem. So if you have any problems or questions during the problem-specific training or the tournament, you're going to see the problem captain. And when you go to your problem-specific training, it will be the problem captain who will be leading it. And in some cases, we have problem co-captains. Next is the head judge, which is the judging team leader. That person serves as the liaison between the judges, the coaches, and the PCs or problem captains. The head judge delivers the scores to the coaches rather. So after the team performs and the scores are entered, usually at least 30 minutes or so afterwards, the coach will be able to get the score, and the head judge will sit down with the coach and go over the score with them. The coaches then take the scores from there and back to their team and go over that with the team. So they're going to answer any questions that that coach may have. They also manage difficult situations. Coaches, some people take this a little more seriously than other folks and get a little wound up. So they have to manage people who might get upset by, teams who maybe don't get the score that they thought they should have gotten. If things are really getting out of hand, the PC may also intervene if the head judge needs some additional assistance. So for example, if a coach is not satisfied with the explanation that's being given, or if the situation escalates, voices get raised, people start to feel uncomfortable in situations, you can always call in the PC, who's there to de-escalate the situation. The head judge must be very familiar with the problem and with the penalties, so they need to understand all aspects of the problem. They need to understand the glossary, the terms, and then also what the different penalties are that can be issued. The head judge also discusses any large penalties with the judging team. So if the judging team comes back with a penalty that is, pretty hefty, the head judge needs to know why was this a penalty assigned, because they have to then turn around and present that information to the coach, who is probably not going to be too happy to see a large penalty. The head judge also is responsible for managing the schedule and dealing with any teams that have issues. For example, things happen. There are accidents that happen on the, a car accident could happen on the way to the competition, or teams may find out that props got broken during transport and they needed to be fixed. Different things can happen and teams may need to be rescheduled. We really try to be as accommodating as possible to teams. Again, remember, they have been working on these long-term problems for a very long time. They are very invested in being able to compete. We don't want to penalize them for accidents that may have happened. So the head judge may reschedule a team. They may ask another team if they'd be willing to go earlier. They may have, teams that you may be asked as a judging team to judge through your break time, just in order to accommodate this team that had an issue that kept them from competing at their assigned time. So we try and be as flexible as possible and make it as non-stressful for these teams as possible. So the head judge, back to penalties again, they're going to report any single penalties of more than 25 points to the PC, the problem captain, as well as the tournament director. And at the end of the day, the head judge reports to the PC and or the score room to make sure that all the score sheets are in and that there are no questions regarding those scores that were put in. And once all of that happens, then you are released and you are free to go home. Now, there is something called tribunals. So should a team question a scoring element and they cannot get that issue resolved by the head judge or by the PC, if the coach is just really not happy with what those two folks are saying and feel like they really just want to keep pushing the issue, then they may request what's called a tribunal. And teams may only request a tribunal for objective scores where the question is in an interpretation of the rules. And this is something that we explain to coaches, that only objective scores can be questioned. Things, such as, did the light turn on or off? Was the light on? It was supposed to turn on. Did it turn on? Things that are subjective scores, which are opinion-based, those cannot be questioned. Coaches cannot take those to tribunal. They cannot argue to get a score changed. Now, there are some non-scoring judge positions. And they play a very important role in providing a quality experience for everyone attending the tournament. But if you are in one of these positions, you're not actually scoring a team, but you are making sure they're having a great time. So some of those positions are, you have what's called a staging area judge. This is the first point of contact with the team. So your teams arrive. They move all of their props into the storage room assigned to their problem and their division. They're going to be looking over everything, making sure, making any last minute repairs, assembling anything that needs to be assembled. They're going to be off changing into costumes and doing hair and makeup and face paint and all that good stuff. And then the staging area judge is going to meet with them about 20 to 30 minutes before their assigned competition time. They will review the paperwork with the team and allow them to fix any clerical errors. So it's very important that you will have a checklist that you have to go through. You're also going to be looking for things like on their style form. Are they asking for things to be scored that are already being scored in their long-term problem? You're allowing, and if they haven't filled out their cost form correctly, they get a chance to correct it, to make changes. Staging area judge is going to check the team membership sign. It must include the membership number and the name of the team. But other information is allowed. You have to have at least, though, the team name, and it has to be written out in a way that makes sense. So, like George Washington High School could be slightly abbreviated to like GEO Washington HS, but GWHS would not be allowed. But it must include the membership number and the name, but you can have other information listed on there as well. And sometimes these signs are made in such a way that they're part of like a set. They might be part of a prop, so there is other embellishments on that sign. The staging area judge is going to check personal jewelry. So they have to see whether what someone is wearing, is that part of the solution or is it just something wearing? So is the watch that they're wearing something that is included in the performance, or does the kid just happen to always wear a watch? If it turns out that jewelry that they're wearing is a part of their problem, the solution to the problem, then it has to be listed on the cost form and a cost has to be assigned to it. They're going to do a safety check. They're going to look for items that are not allowed, such as dry ice. Now, in terms of who may be in the staging area and the check-in space and what they may do, non-team members, and this includes coaches, parents, and other adults, may help move solution items into check-in and staging areas. So it is fine for them to pick those items up and move them. It is not fine for them to fix items or fix hair or fix costumes, but they can definitely serve as movers. Now, if the staging area judge has concerns about the team's solution, they should make a note on the staging area or SA checklist for the judging team to assess after the performance. So for example, if the staging area judge sees something that they feel is outside assistance, then they should make a note of that on the checklist so that the judging team can be involved in determining was outside assistance happening. Now, the staging area judge, one of the most important things that you do is to keep the team calm and to make sure they're having fun. Again, it's all about trying to make sure everybody has a great experience. There's also a non-judging role called the timekeeper. This is the second judge to talk to the team during the competition. Timekeepers should have consistent interactions with the team. And if you happen to know the coach or the team, you don't want to indicate that because, again, it gives kind of a sense of bias or impropriety. So you want to be the same with every single team and don't let on if you're like close friends with somebody. You're going to welcome the audience and introduce the team. This kind of sets the tone for the whole performance. It's kind of like a little warm-up act. Timekeepers are usually pretty humorous. Timekeeper also starts the time for when the problem solution begins, and depending on the problem criteria may stop the team when time is up. So that's really going to depend on the problems. Some problems you have exactly 8 minutes, and when that 8 minutes is up, the team stops. Some problems you are allowed to go over the 8 minutes until you are done, but you will be assigned a penalty for the amount of time that you go over. So the timekeeper stops the time when the team signals it is finished. So that could be before or after the 8 minutes. It depends on how the performance goes. The timekeeper is also responsible for keeping the judging team on schedule. So not only are they timing the kids, but they are keeping you on time. Now another non-judging role is the problem for weigh-in judge. So again, this is the structure problem where they are building something out of balsa and glue. This judge interacts with all teams in problem 4, in P4, which stands for problem 4. This judge weighs and measures all structures that the kids bring in. They do allow the teams to make changes so that they meet the various criteria. There's weight criteria, there's height criteria, there's all sorts of criteria that they have to make, and kids are given the opportunity to make changes to make sure they reach that criteria. You then have the position of score checker. That's in each problem as well. They're going to review the judges' score sheets. They're going to make sure, they were filled out properly, look for any inconsistencies, if a number's kind of scribbled, they want to make sure they understand what that number is. They are then going to enter those scores into the computer. They're going to check those entered scores for accuracy against the written score sheet. So make sure what was written on the score sheet is actually what goes into the computer, because that then gets transmitted to the score room. And they're going to also interact with the score room. Now, some problems use Dropbox, and there is no physical transmission of problem score sheets, and some actually do print out score sheets and have those taken. Usually there's a score runner who will come around and pick up sheets from each of the score checkers. Now, scoring judges, these positions are responsible for observing and recording the results of each team's performance. There are different types of scoring judges, so let's look at all those different types and review what their responsibilities are. You have long-term problem judges. You carefully record and score what you see happening. You should be, again, consistent from one team to the next when interpreting the rules. You can't change how you interpret the rules midstream. Judges on a team may not score the same scores on the subjective scoring items, and that is okay as long as each judge is consistent in their own scores. So again, you may have a criteria that if you see something, you always give it an 8 because that's how you score, and maybe your judge who's scoring the same thing only scores a 6 for that. That's fine, as long as you're consistent in what you're doing. Each of you is consistent in the scores that you give. Now, if there's an actual disagreement on the interpretation of a scoring item, the judges should discuss this first with the head judge and possibly the problem captain. Hopefully all of this will be worked out during your problem-specific training. But if on the day of competition you find out that, oh, my fellow judge is interpreting this rule slightly differently from the way I've been interpreting it, then you need to let the head judge and possibly the PC know about that, because both of you should be interpreting this criteria in the exact same way. You can score it differently, but you need to interpret it the same. So one thing to remember, on objective points, if one judge sees it, then all judges score it. So even if you don't see the light come on, if there's one person on your judging team who says, yeah, I saw that light come on, then it's basically everybody saw the light come on. Make sure, again, during that Q&A time with the team that you look at the solution very closely, talk to the kids, get as much information as you can about it. And be curious, because things look one way from afar, and when you get up close, you may just realize that something is truly amazing that the kids have created. And again, ask those questions that encourage the team to talk and even to brag about their accomplishments. And you want to make sure you show appreciation for every performance. You know, good job, that was great, thank you so much. Make them feel good. So now, style judges. They are responsible only for the items on the style form. They evaluate, just like everybody else, they evaluate and score consistently throughout the day. They will look at the solution up close during Q&A with the team, but again, they're only going to be looking at those style components, those 5 style elements that the team has listed. They also are going to ask those questions of the team members to encourage them to talk or even brag. And they're going to be on the lookout for double dipping. So if an item has been scored in the long-term problem, it may not be scored for style. Hopefully your staging area judge has caught this if a team has put down a style element that is already being scored. But if something goes through, you're going to want to catch it and make a note of it. And just like everyone else, you show appreciation for every performance. Now, spontaneous judges. Each team completes a spontaneous problem. It requires impromptu problem-solving skills and effective teamwork. And as a judge, spontaneous judge, you're going to observe responses and you're going to record your score. Was it common? Was it creative? If it's a hands-on, you're going to be scoring for the different criteria there. You're also going to be evaluating the creativity of how the team solves the problem and how well they work together. So you want to be mindful of, okay, maybe they're not, maybe the way they solved something wasn't didn't work out the way they wanted, but if they were very, very creative in then the approach they took, then you're going to be given the opportunity to give them points for that. Also, if the team worked really well together versus a team that's not working well together, arguing, or they're each doing their own thing, that's what you want to keep an eye out for as a spontaneous judge. Now, each year, new long-term problems are provided to each Odyssey of the Mind team. Like we said, there are 5 problems and then a primary problem. And the following are the 2019-2020 problems. These are just the synopsis of each problem. This is not the actual long problem. When you do your problem-specific training, you will get to see the actual problem. Most of them are at least 6 pages long, and I believe Balsa is 8 pages long, so it's much longer than what you're about to see. I am going to read these just because there are people who are only listening. So primary problem, the title is The Fashion Bug. So again, this is for grades K through 2nd. It is non-competitive, and primary problem teams only participate in qualifying tournaments. We don't advance them to the state finals. So, but they do receive scores and evaluation as part of their overall experience. So even though it's not competitive, they do get a score. So the team's problem this year is to create and present a humorous performance that includes a fashion show for insects. An up-and-coming designer will be highlighted as a narrator describes the odd and curious fashions as they are modeled. A team-created song, a commercial, and a critic who reviews the fashion show are all part of the performance. So again, with primary problem, a lot of times they try and put in different elements from the other 5 problems, things like they have a performance piece, a classics piece, something so that the kids got to get a sense of what each of the other problems is like for when they are able to compete in them. Problem 1 is called Long Shot Solution. Problem 1 is always a vehicle problem, and it includes a performance. So this year, the problem reads, a group of long shots believe a disastrous event that threatens the world is about to occur and must stop it. Because no one takes them seriously, it is up to the long shots to solve the problem. To succeed, they must send materials from all corners of the world using vehicles that overcome obstacles and travel simultaneously into and out of a reaction area. As time counts down, the long shots will use the components, including baking soda, to create a solution that produces a very special effect and saves the day. So, a little side note, this problem this year is sponsored by Arm & Hammer, and it must contain baking soda as part of the solution. And for those of you who are problem 1 judges, you will be talking about that a great deal during the problem-specific training, because this is new for all of us. So, and a vehicle could look like, and for those of you who are just listening, it's a picture of a student on a vehicle that, I don't know, it might be a dragon. I'm not quite sure what it is, and it looks like she's got a colander on her head. Not sure about that. So, problem 2, networking is the title of problem 2. It is a technical problem. And it reads, computers, satellites, and servers work continuously to allow people from all over the world to network with one another. These networks give us access to information including communications, messages, and videos. In this problem, the networked devices are characters who work to keep the world connected. During the performance, an image, a text message, an email, and other information will be transmitted between locations in a team-made system. Pop-up advertisements appear, and a malware character will infect the network and take it offline. An antivirus hero comes to the rescue, and team-made instruments will be used to present an original song that explains their jobs. And there will be many approaches to this solution. And this slide shows a picture from a previous year's performance. Next up is problem 3, classics, the effective detective. So problem 3 is a performance problem with a classical twist. It's that way every year. There will be a variety of classical elements in problem 3 depending on the focus of the problem. And again, during your problem-specific training, you will go over what those are. Here is the synopsis. You will be introduced to one of the greatest detectives the world has ever known as they follow clues to uncover the truth behind some of history's real-world mysteries. The detective will investigate different types of information, including a clue that is a red herring, i.e. a distraction, and do intellectual battle with a supervillain who wants the detective to fail. Sounds will ring out and settings will creatively change to set the scene and highlight the action. The team will also be challenged to use the smallest space possible to store its solution. And again, you might see anything in these solutions, and this slide shows a picture from a previous year's performance. Next up is problem 4, balsa limbo. This problem requires the team to design and build a structure made of only balsa wood and glue. And here is the synopsis. Teams will build balsa wood structures that are created by adjusting its interconnected parts. When the parts are not in the final form for weight testing, they must be able to pass under a limbo bar. Higher score will be awarded for how low the bar is when the structure passes under it. However, the bar is not allowed to be lower than ½ inch. The limbo bar test and maneuvering the structure for testing will take place during the performance time. Testing of the structure will take place during a performance with a theme about dancing and movement. Some teams won't, and as an aside, some teams won't hold much weight and some teams will hold a lot. And this slide shows a previous solution by a team, including what is known as the crusher board, which is what you put the structure on, and there's a student putting weights on top. Problem 5 is called gibberish or not, and it is a performance problem. And the synopsis reads, genius or not so smart, statements change from gibberish at the start. Do the thoughts shine or miss the mark? Masses think they're being led out of the dark. A champion arranges meetings with those in power, and gibberish ideas bloom like a flower. The crowd replaces thoughts with wisdom, and a child sees it is all just humdrum. Misinterpreted over and again, twisted words fly in the end. Music blares and the celebration is wild, and misunderstanding is accepted by the child. The performance will explain why the child does not reveal the truth, that what they believe is wisdom was really just gibberish. Now, experienced teams strive to enhance their solution with music, dance, verse, and/or artwork. And again, here is an example of one of the many solutions that you can see from a past performance. So let's take a second to talk about special awards that can be given out. So in addition to teams placing either first, second, or third, there are a couple of special awards. One is the Renatra Fusca Creativity Award, and another is Omer's Award. And judges should always remember to consider these two awards when they see something that is really out of the ordinary. So the Renatra Fusca Creativity Award is the most highly coveted award in the Odyssey of the Mind program. It is awarded to teams or individuals who exhibit exceptional creativity through their problem solution. You want to remember success is not a criteria. So the award is a way to acknowledge creative thinking and risk-taking. An example of that is I saw a Renatra Fusca given to an individual in the balsa wood. Her solution did not hold much weight, but but she chose to make the structure out of just balsa. She didn't use any glue to glue it together. She used wooden pegs, and that even though it didn't hold much weight, the judges were so impressed with her going out and trying that they gave her a Renatra. Award winners automatically advance to the next level of competition. So if you give a Renatra at a qualifying round, that team will automatically advance to states. And at states, if they got a Renatra, they would automatically advance to worlds. So it doesn't matter where they place in the end, they automatically advance for their Renatra. And only long-term style or spontaneous judges may make a nomination for a Renatra Fusca Creativity Award. And only judges may do that. Now, Omer's Award is named for the raccoon mascot of Odyssey of the Mind. He is named Omer. This award recognizes teams or individuals who demonstrate outstanding sportsmanship, exemplary behavior, or exceptional talent. Omers can be nominated by students, coaches, parents, officials. Any of those folks can nominate a team, an individual. They can also nominate a coach or a parent. Any of those folks can nominate or be nominated. Omers is not intended to reward creativity. Again, that's the Renatra Fusca. So wrapping this up, a few more things. So what makes a great judge or official? We're going to talk about what are the important dates and what do I need to do next. So judging, the main thing is make it fun. Some of the things to know: judges are encouraged to wear creative hats to get into the mood of the event, and this will be discussed during their problem-specific training. Some judging teams even go so far as to have a theme for the entire day. Again, that'll come up during your problem-specific training. Judging teams create and provide witty responses to the timekeeper asking judges, "Are you ready?" You will talk about that during problem-specific training. And judges are encouraged to laugh and smile and to make the students laugh and smile. We want everybody to have a good time and everybody to want to come back next year. So what else makes a great official? You want to be punctual, so show up when we need you to. You need to know the rules of your problem, so make sure you read it very carefully and that you listen during the problem-specific training and ask a lot of questions. Make sure you score consistently throughout the day and from team to team. Don't look to penalize, only to level the playing field. And so what makes a great Odyssey of the Mind judge? A great attitude. So you want to smile, you want to relax the team, you want to enjoy the performances, you want to congratulate the teams, and you want to have fun. And if you do all of those things, everyone's going to have a great day. So let's talk about the tournament, the dates. So there are 2 qualifying tournaments. The first one will be held on Saturday, March 7th. It will be at Lake Forest High School at 5407 Killens Pond Road in Felton. That is one of the 2 tournaments you could choose to judge. The other qualifying tournament will be the following Saturday on March 14th, which is at Milford High School at 1019 North Walnut Street in Milford. You will need to judge one of those 2 tournaments. Now, if the team for whom you are their judge goes on to states, then you will need to judge at the state tournament as well, or you may just choose to judge at the state tournament because you're having such an awesome time. And that is on Saturday, March 28th. It will be at William Henry Middle School. That is, again, the state finals tournament, and that is at 65 Carver Road in Dover. The things to remember about the day of: we do feed you lunch. There's often snacks available during the day. There's usually a lot of the PCs make sure that there's like little breakfast food to have as well. You might want to double check though at your problem-specific training, but we will definitely make sure you get fed lunch. There's usually snacky food available all day long. You get breaks. You get a t-shirt, the special judging t-shirt, and you get a lot of thanks from us. That's what you get for training, for judges training. Now, you need to make sure you go to your problem-specific training. That is an in-person training. You have a choice of 1 of 4 different sessions. You do not have to go to all 4 of these. You only have to choose 1 of these 4. There are 2 different dates. You can either go on Saturday, January 25th, or Saturday, February 9th. And on those days, you can either go to the morning session, which is from 9 to 11, or the afternoon session from 12 to 2. So your 4 dates are 9 to 11 on January 25th, or 12 to 2 on January 25th, or you can go February 9th and go in the morning from 9 to 11, or you can go in the afternoon from 12 to 2. All of these trainings will be held at W.B. Simpson Elementary School, which is on 5 Old North Road in Wyoming, near Dover. You want to arrive, it says 30 minutes before the session to register, but probably 15 at the latest. We do want to start on time. We want to make sure that you are registered, that the registration folks know that you're there. And we want to end on time. So, and usually we have snacks available, but we don't feed you lunch. That will be on your own. So what do you need to do next? So your training as a judge is not complete until you take the General Rules Certification Test. And remember, even if you have taken this test in years past, you have to take it again. This is not our rule. This is the CCI rule. So the folks who are organizing Odyssey of the Mind at the international level says all judges must take this certification test. So you're going to have to take a few minutes and take that test. So to take the online test, you want to go to https. Anyway, the address is on there. It's a tiny URL, DEOOTM Judge Test 2020. So you're going to go on there. It's an online test. It's just 20 questions. And you may go back and review these slides. So it really is an open book test. There's no reason to not get a 20 out of 20, but make sure you take it. And the important thing is that you understand the general rules for being a judge. So thank you for volunteering. Thank you for sitting through this presentation. We really appreciate it. We couldn't have a successful tournament without you, and we will see you at the problem-specific training. Thank you.